Mark Horvath of Crawford Family Wines makes small lots of wine focusing on fruit from the Santa Rita Hills. He sourced his Syrah for this wine from Zotovich Vineyard, and with its deep sandy soils on the 246 corridor between Buellton and Lompoc.
First of all, thanks for coming. Appreciate everybody being here. Thanks for inviting me. Really proud to represent the Santa Rita Hills up here today. I moved here and started making wine here in 1998, and no one was really making Syrah from the Santa Rita Hills then. There were a few isolated plantings, and I was working for Brian Babcock at the time, and we had a section of Syrah that he really hated, and he never wanted to put much effort into it. He just didn't feel like it was the right place. But every year we made the wine, I was struck by how interesting it was, how it held on to its acidity. We've been talking about how in these cool climates, Syrah really hangs on to its acidity, and there was a freshness and a vibrancy about that wine. It would be big and rich on the one hand, but then have this tremendous backbone of acidity that would keep it fresh and bright. It was very peppery, it was very spicy. It was not his cup of tea, but for me, it really ignited this curiosity. And I had a project for a number of years called Kenneth-Crawford Wines that some of you may remember. And our goal out the gate was, we always knew we would make some Pinot and some Chardonnay and some other things from the area, but our goal out the gate was to make Santa Rita Hills Syrah, and as much of it as we could. And at the time, there was even a bit of resistance in the Santa Rita Hills to us championing Syrah, because the focus of the area at the time, trying to establish itself in the marketplace, was very specific to Pinot and Chardonnay, and we really felt like we were kind of bucking the trend by promoting Syrah, but we were convinced Syrah in the Santa Rita Hills in that climate was special and unique and worthy of that attention. So I've been making Syrah from the area for a very long time. I don't think I'm as brave as Scott. You're drinking. The youngest wine here is mine, partly purposeful, partly the dynamics of a very small winery and needing to get wine out in the market. But I as well bring the wines in, the fruit in, it cold soaks for a few days. It is then inoculated and spends a good 14-15 days during fermentation. Pressed off, I use only neutral barrels for this wine because, again, like these other guys, I really want to let the fruit shine through. I want you to smell and taste Santa Rita Hills fruit. And I agree, I've made wine from Ballard Canyon, from the Los Alamos area. They're all excellent Syrah producing areas. What I love about the Santa Rita Hills is the really dark, earthy qualities we get in the Santa Rita Hills, that tar and creosote, that maybe fresh tobacco leaf, that kind of thing that comes out of the wines. But I am really most struck by the structure of the wines from the area, that sort of quivering tension we get between rich, ripe fruit and striking acidity, a bit of minerality that we get in the core of that wine. That's what I love about the Santa Rita Hills.
Syrah with Pinot, what are the differences for you?
Well, comparing and contrasting Syrah and Pinot Noir in the Santa Rita Hills in particular is really interesting, because I think Pinot Noir has a lot of the same characteristics in the Santa Rita Hills that Syrah has, in that it is such a cool and challenging area to grow grapes in. Same thing happens with Pinot Noir. I think Santa Rita Hills is rather famous for making somewhat dark, rich, but definitely spicy Pinot Noir. Our Pinots are known for being on the spicy side, and I think that's very distinctive about the area. Syrahs are the same way. I think there's a lot of sandy soil. This is Zotovich Vineyard is a really interesting vineyard in the fact that it's not a very interesting vineyard to look at. It's a very flat, very simple, deep, sandy vineyard, and yet the fruit that comes out of there is just extraordinary. I source from these really dramatic hillsides in a lot of different areas in the Santa Rita Hills that are really amazing to look at, and as a winemaker you stand there and go, wow, this is going to make something interesting. I mean, look at this soil, look at this aspect. and the wines are awesome. But then you go over to Zotovich and you stand there and it's like, you know, like I hope this does what I think it's going to do, and it does every time. It's really interesting and unique, and I think it's Larry touched on it. There's all this sand on the surface, and it is like beach sand at Zotovich. I mean, it's probably 12, 15 inches of just beach sand. But then below that, you've got all this ancient seabed, you've got sedimentary rock, you've got all of this really interesting stuff that I think the vines really dig deep for, and it's what ends up making the wines so unique from there. But I think the Santa Rita Hills has this great, I use the word tension and probably too much, but I just feel like between ripe, rich fruit and vibrant, fresh acidity, both the Pinot Noirs and the Syrahs have that same characteristic, obviously different flavors and aromas, but that structure, that tension, that freshness in the wines, I think holds through, whether it's Pinot, Chardonnay as a matter of fact as well, and Syrah. I think the area is known for that. My middle name is Crawford. My first project with Kenneth-Crawford, it was our middle names. It was better than Mark and Joey's wine. It just didn't have the right ring. Yeah, I told my dad early on, Horvath is not going on a label. It just doesn't work for a wine label. But so, yeah, I had to deal with Horvath my entire youth, and so I wasn't going to put it on a label. It's also my mom's maiden name, and my mom was instrumental when we moved here in helping finance a young winery, and so it's sort of an homage to mom as well. Yeah, so Crawford is my middle name.
Thank you for sharing.